Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast State of the Balance here for July 2017. And how things sort of look from month to month here, that is June to July. Well, there's not exactly in terms of meta been a series of huge changes, so it's largely penal troopers into M4Cs or T-34s, discus, but there's also been a slight increase in sort of players trying out other things. There's some more guardsmen, more conscripts. Some actually beginning to use maxims, but by and large, it's largely the same there with the Soviets. With the Americans, also not exactly huge sort of changes. Heavy cavalry seems to be sort of coming, well, slightly less used. There's still a lot of, for example, armor doctrine instead sort of making up it. So it's still very much sort of monolithic with, again, majority lieutenant, but some players increasingly going for captains to counter Oberkommando West plays, for example. You know, Luxus then being dealt with by stewards, bazookas and likes. That way there's some slight changes there in the American meta, but overall, by and by, there's not really a huge set of changes there. It's still very much sort of the same game they're playing like they've been playing for ages. And with the Brits, it's pretty much the same stale game there for sure. Of course, with some changes that are happening in the near future, that should certainly make things a lot more interesting and refreshing. And obviously there, I mean, again, just the whole change to the coal and meta that'll happen with the full balance preview will probably shake up things quite considerably. And I'm certainly looking forward to that. Plus, of course, change to the penal troopers will also be rather beneficial. As an example there, I mean, that'll certainly have an impact alongside, of course, no more M4C spam. Discus spam will also be a lot less impressive. So in that regard, you know, there are considerable changes coming in there, which I think, you know, help, you know, spread out things further and make, you know, room for more interesting strategies, since you're not just going to get punched by someone just, you know, mindlessly spamming penal troopers and Shermans, for example. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting. On the Axis side, Oberkommando West also pretty much the same side. I mean, there's been an increase in use of Sturmtiger, so, you know, catch up once things go rather pear-shaped. So that's certainly something there to keep in mind of. You know, they might just try and suddenly push you with a Sturmtiger instead of just trying to hit for insta-wipes and destroying your tanks in one hit. So that is something worth keeping in mind there. But overall, you know, it's either a lot of Volksgrenadiers or a lot of Volksgrenadiers into Lux. And then if they go for Lux, they, you know, also like just, you know, go for the battle group headquarters, hurt the tech, and then go for a command Panther King Tiger. Still see some play, of course, sometimes good, sometimes just they go for the King Tiger because they can, not because they should. And several times it doesn't really work out frightfully well either, so that's not really something I'd particularly hugely recommend. But overall, again, change that to the Oberkommandos and how they can just rely on colons, I think will certainly shake things up there considerably. Thankfully, the Kuvan being less potent and less cheesy, I think should also have an impact there for the positive. As for the variant, that's basically sort of where there's been some change. Again, there's more players actually trying out Panthers. Basically, these sort of got different strategies now. You got T3 Rush, you got just sort of more regular sort of teching up there. You got heavy grenadier builds, Ostroben builds. Some go for heavy Panzer Grenadiers. You got Scoutcars, even some go for half-techs. Flame for half-techs are sort of common motif at the moment to help deal with penal troops and any sort of infantry build. The flame for half-tech in that regard ends up working like the T7, that is, can sort of keep control of the enemy infantry. And there's also, again, some going for tier 4 with Panthers and like. There's Tigers, there's Lightning War. In that regard, the Wehrmacht is probably in the best position at the moment in terms of just, you know, flexibility. And probably to an extent will stand, you know, even a bit better because, again, sort of a lot of the cheese stuff that can sort of roll the road easily can sort of then be further sort of curtailed. So I don't really think there's much that needs to actually be done with the Wehrmacht, except maybe look at the doctrine. Certainly, you know, after the full balance preview sort of patch, you know, looking at the doctrine, I think for a lot of the armies could be sort of a pretty good state. But I don't think I sort of want to touch anything for the Wehrmacht at the moment. Maybe slightly look into making the Grenadiers slightly less spammable, actually. But beyond that, I think the Wehrmacht is sort of in a reasonably good condition where I don't think I want to touch too much. Then you risk, unless I risk, you know, sort of turning the entire thing over aggressively. So they're probably still in the best state, but they also then want you actually currently have to watch because they can actually then pull off a series of strategies like, again, just regular tech, rush tech, doctrinal choices there as well, can sort of give you some pause. I mean, some will go for heavy assault grenadiers. So, I mean, they're again feeling, I think, in a pretty good spot there. So again, I don't really want to touch them much as such. So there you go, the state of the balance. Again, not much because overall not a lot has changed. And again, we got the full balance preview, which again means there's not really much to say because it sort of really covers a lot of the things I just want, you know, fixed. So in that regard, there's not much else to say there. I mean, you know, demo charges still, I think, need to be sort of looked at pretty aggressively, preferably in a permanent removed way, because they really just don't fit at all, in my personal opinion. Beyond that, though, not so much else comes to mind. So again, shorter balanced preview, but again, not really much has changed except with the development. Again, they're sort of now pushing in different directions at the same time compared to most other factions, whereas others are sort of, to an extent, largely the same. There's not really been any sort of really new pushes in the strategy and tactics there. So, I mean, there's not really much to say there at all. So, there you go. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Learned something from it. Again, if you're playing against the Wehrmacht, this would probably be a lot more helpful than the other bits because, I mean, again, there's just not much. They tend to be, again, you know, one kind of spam into the other. But again, for the Wehrmacht, there are several things you have to sort of watch out for. So that sort of, you know, again, makes for sort of more interesting commentary on them. But also, yes, you know, means I can say a lot more about that because there is a lot more going on with the Wehrmacht. So you have to sort of be better able to read their moves. You know, again, are you suddenly seeing a lot of grenadiers, in which case you might have to prepare for a tier 3 rush, which then would require its sort of counter moves. And if not, you know, prepare for 2-2s maybe to help counter your early game. So, you know, there's sort of directions there, changes and the likes. But again, if you enjoyed this, learn something from you, like, subscribe, share and comment on it. If you like what I do, you know, on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, do consider donating or pledging on Patreon. Links in the video description. Thank you all and see you all for another video. Cheers.